fellow sports lovers, and welcome to another episode of Timeout, a show anybody can watch about sports, stats, facts, and everything in between, from a fan point of view. I'm your host, Charlie, so let's go get this ball rolling. Timeout. Let's talk about some sports. Woo-hoo! Timeout. Fantasy Rockstars. Okay, fellow timeout lovers and sports lovers, on this Thursday, we're going to be discussing about fantasy football. With week 111 in the bag and 86 done, here are my choices for my top 10 fantasy rock stars. So, time out. It's fantasy time. Okay, fellow sports lovers, here we go. Woohoo! With week 1 already done and in the bag, here we go with my fantasy football rock stars. Okay, we're gonna start off with quarterback rock star Tom Brady, number 12, with an outstanding 288 yards, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4, count them, 4 touchdowns, and definitely helped out his fantasy football owners with a whopping 27 points. Another fantasy football rock star would be quarterback, whoo-wee, he's a bad man, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. With week 1, he devastated my Bears with 189 yards, not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns, and helped out fantasy football owners with a shocking 22 points. My last superstar rockstar quarterback for week 1 goes to rookie quarterback Marcus Mariota. Alright, good job, buddy. He had 209 yards with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Count them, 4 touchdowns. And is in the first time him ever even playing in the NFL. Woo! Good job, pal. Keep it up. Helping out his fantasy football owners, which if you picked him up, smart people, with 24 points. Also a win against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, now for my running back, boom, rock stars, such as Green Bay stud Eddie Lacy, who rushed and went off to the races for 85 yards, fellow timeout lovers, with 1 touchdown and helped out those fantasy points with 15. Another rock star stud is Kansas City Chiefs' own Jamal Charles, with 57 yards, count them, 1 touchdown, and definitely also with 15 points, helped out those fantasy owners for him. And the last running back I'm going to start talking about, rockstar, would be Cowboy Joseph Randle, who rushed for 65 yards and 16 carries, and helped out his owners with 10 points. And especially because without number 88, Dez Bryant, who knows, he can definitely be a factor for Tony Romo to throw to. Okay, moving right along, my next rockstar wide receivers. We're gonna go with my number one pick, ATL's own Falcon, Julio Jones, with 141 yards, not 1 but 2 touchdowns. Looked like a superstar on Monday night, and helped out with 26. That's right, 26 points for fantasy owners. I was somebody who picked up that superstar, by the way. Also, got to give it up to Tennessee stud Bishop Sankey, who went off to the races and just could not stop looking back, rushing for 74 yards, 12 carries, 1 touchdown, but are you ready for this, fellow timeout lovers, sports lovers, Periscope lovers? He got 20 points for fantasy owners. So good job if you picked him up. He was a sleeper, and he definitely stepped up his game in week 1. My final rock star for the wide receivers position is Julia Edelman from the New England Patriots. With 97 receiving yards, running for 9 yards, and also got 9 points on for fantasy lovers. Still a good pickup. I picked him up as well, and I feel like it's definitely somebody number 12 is going to throw to, after, of course, throwing to Mr. Rob Gronkowski. Okay, moving right along. Speaking of Mr. Rob, boom, spiked the ball, Gronkowski. He's my first rock star tight end to pick for this week 222. With him getting 94 yards, not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns against the Steelers on last Thursday, and gave fantasy owners a whopping 30. Woo! 30 points. Man, what a stud. Another rock star tight end this week was Kansas City's own chief, Travis Kalice, who got 106 yards, not 1 but 2 touchdowns, and gave fantasy lovers a shocking, are you ready for this, 22 points. Man, if you picked him up, good job. That was definitely a tight end that I feel like is going to be in the elite with, of course, Mr. Gronkowski and, of course, Martellus Bennett from the Bears. Okay, my last tight end rock star that really rocked it out this weekend was 82 Mr. Reliable for the Cowboys, Jason Witten, who got 60 yards, not 1 but 2 touchdowns, and gave fantasy owners as well as myself, as I own him as well in fantasy, 24 points. Woo-hoo! You go, Mr. Reliable. So there you go. There are my picks to play for week 222 of the fantasy football. Timeout. Fantasy Notstars. Okay, fellow sports lovers. So I just told you about my fantasy football rock stars. So here are my picks for players who were not stars. Starting off with quarterback, my first quarterback, and I hate to admit this, it's quarterback Peyton Manning of the Denver Broncos. With only 170 yards, 0, that's right, nothing, goose egg touchdowns, and only gave fantasy point lovers 12 points. Ouch. Definitely somebody, and going against Kansas City Chiefs tonight, I feel like, Peyton, you really have to step up your game because your age is showing. Next on the list for quarterback, not stars, it was my own quarterback, Jay Cutler, who only completed for 50% of his passes, for 225 yards, only got 1 touchdown, and did get 1 interception, as well as a loss against our arch nemesis, the Packers. Definitely somebody to, if you have him, put him on the bench. On the running back side, we have Denver's own Ronnie Hillman. Because Payne wasn't throwing to anybody, Ronnie wasn't really having a great day. He only got 41 rush yards and only gave 11, that's right, 11 points to fantasy owners. Next, not star, would be Raiders' own Latavius Murray, who only got 44 rush yards and only 8, that's right, 8 points for fantasy football owners. If you got him, bench him. If you don't try to get him, just let him stay on the bench. Next on the wide receivers end, we're going with rookie Melvin Gordon from the San Diego Chargers, which actually a lot of people picked up, with 51 rush yards and only 9 points for fantasy lovers. Really, Philip Rivers doesn't feel that comfortable with Melvin yet. Feels more confident with stud Danny Woodhead, who I picked up, by the way. So if you can still get Danny, it's a possibility. Definitely, though, keep Melvin on your bench, because if, unfortunately, Danny does get injured, God forbid, he's going to have to go with Melvin Gordon. So, anyway, my next wide receiver, who's not a all-star at all, is Buffalo Bills' own Sammy Watkins. With no receiving yards, that's right, goose egg receiving yards, and only got 5, that's right, 5 points, and that's just because the Bills won the game against the Colts. Definitely, that's one that hurts. I mean, he's really got to figure out how to work around this new rookie quarterback, Trayvon Taylor. Finally, my not star tight ends this week are Greg Olsen for the Carolina Panthers, who only got 11 receiving yards, no touchdowns, and only 5, that's right, 5 points to fantasy owners of him. My not star defense is, shockingly, I'm going to go with the New England Patriots. They only gave their fantasy owners -1 points without having a Vince Wilfork. You gotta find, Bill Belichick, somebody like Wilfork to really defend that, because DeAngelo Williams, as much as it was awesome seeing him run off to the races, that defense shouldn't have allowed that to happen. And finally, my not-star kicker is from the Cincinnati Bengals, Mike Nugent, with an overall rating of 313 in defense. It's somebody you just do not want to pick up at all. Okay, fellow timeout lovers and fantasy lovers and sports lovers, I hope this helped you out in picking out your fantasy rock stars and avoiding those not stars. What you watching? Okay, woo-hoo! Sports lovers and timeout lovers, with week 222 about to begin, we have this Thursday night football. Woo-hoo! We have the Kansas City Chiefs trying to stop the Denver Broncos in their path. Or will the Sheriff and his band of Broncos rush and trample over the Chiefs? Tune in on CBS or the NFL Network at 8:25 p.m. tonight to find out. Well, that's my show, fellow sports lovers. Thanks for tuning in. If you really like what I'm talking about, then go ahead and give me that thumbs up. Or, if you're watching on Periscope, man, do I love me them hearts. Or, you can leave me a comment below the video here. Or, if you really feel what I'm talking about, then why haven't you subscribed yet? Or, you can reach me on social media, on Facebook at Charles Cowan Timeout, and finally hit me up on Twitter, as well as I'm very active on Periscope at Timeout Now 87. Until next time, Timeout. Let's talk about some sports. Woo-hoo! Have a great weekend and good luck, Kansas City Chiefs versus the Denver Broncos.